Hello everyone and welcome back to a professional match of StarCraft 2. Today it's time for a Zerg versus Protoss where we find ourselves on Glittering Ashes. Spawning right here in the top right corner from Ukraine, playing with the blue Zerg drones, we have Bly. His opponent in the opposite corner with the red Protoss probes from Russia, we are looking at KingCobra's main Nexus. Now, a couple of days ago, I lost a very frustrating game of Zerg versus Protoss, and you'll probably not be surprised to learn at this point that my late game Zerg versus Protoss is not particularly good. Overall, my win-loss ratio in ZVP is actually pretty decent. I think I'm winning overall like 60% or so of the games. However, as soon as the games go the distance, as soon as those Skytles fleets start roaming the map, I just win like maybe 1 in 10, maybe 1 in 20 even. It's that bad. So, after a frustrating loss, I decided to load up a couple of longer games of Zerg versus Protoss. And I fast-forwarded through like the first 10 or so minutes of this particular match. And I realized, wait a second, this is not a game I just, want to see the late game off. I actually think I want to go ahead and cast it instead. So, I've got a rough understanding of what ended up going down here in the earlier stages of the game. But let's just say that it is a little bit crazy. So, first off, we've got our Zerg player sending his very first drone towards the other side of the map to make a hatchery inside of the natural expansion of KingCobra. This is something that Bly does consistently in pretty much all of his ZVPs, which is pretty funny. I think overall it's one of those things that technically shouldn't really put the Zerg player too far ahead, but it certainly is very annoying for the Protoss player to have to deal with. In the meantime though, KingCobra decided to follow the gateway up, not with a cyber core, but with a forge. Obviously, the forge will allow him to start building photon cannons on the other side of the map as well, as long as he gets pylon power. And that's exactly what ends up happening right here inside of the natural expansion of the Zerg. And this is where I was like, okay, this game is already a little bit crazy, but it gets crazier, okay? This is something we see from time to time, where we have hatch into like a photon cannon rush, but it gets much crazier from here as well. Bly decides to cancel the hatch. Starts building an Evo chamber as well, because the hatchery temporarily leaves a little bit of creep behind that you can just barely plant the Evo chamber on if you are fast enough. There is a photon cannon coming up over here as well. 2 photon cannons in the meantime. On the other side of the map, there's a gateway over here creating a wall off. And yeah, those drones are not going to be able to bite their way through it. Bly has decided to cancel the hatch right over here. So that's the second hatchery cancel by the 2.5 minute mark. And he's now building a hatchery at one of the potential third base locations. At the same time, the drone that previously was becoming the natural expo is moving on over towards the left side of the map. And believe it or not, there you go. Bly is now grabbing this one as well. Pylon coming up over at the newly acquired expansion of Bly. And there's another cannon rush ready to go underway. 2 zealots moving across the map. Third zealot being, constructed right now, or I don't know, being warped in from another planet. I'm not exactly sure how this works out. At this point, though, Zerglings are available. There is a queen out as well. It looks like Bly is going to be sending the queen over in this direction upon the Overlord here scouting exactly what is happening here at the third. He needs to try and kill this photon cannon before it goes up. Good control so far on the Zergling. Very good control, actually, so far on the Zerglings. Perfect control so far on the Zerglings, although eventually I think 2 of them end up happening, or 2 end up getting picked off there regardless. Nice control there overall by the Zerg. At the same time, there is a photon cannon rush happening at the newly acquired base of the Zerg player as well. But I think the 3 low HP Zerglings should be able to shut this down. The Zealots, though, desperately want to try and see if they can, they can still finish all of this off. But I've got a feeling it's going to be very hard to do so. Third Zealot now also shows up. I feel like you might want to even, recall this one. Anyways, eventually, the early game has been settled. Here's the problem, though. In the meantime, at home, KingCobra is just macroing up. Everything's looking pretty standard here for the Protoss player, all things considered. However, Zerg now has a main base, a third base, and a fourth base, but no creep connecting any of it. And obviously, the natural expansion has not been acquired yet either. There's gonna be a Stargate as a follow-up, so obviously Zerg is gonna have to scramble the queens all around, but how are you gonna do that if you don't really have any creep connecting the bases? Instead, what Bly decides to do now is build a baneling nest. So at this point, I'm watching the replay. I was trying to learn how to play late-game Zerg, and I realized, you know what, I I don't know. Like, I think this is where I closed out of the game. At this point, I just want to go ahead and cast it because this is some craziness here. I'm liking this position for Protoss quite a bit, though, just because it's so much more conventional for him. I almost feel like there's a hole in the wall right over there. Am I crazy? I'm assuming KingCobra knows how to wall off here, but that does seem a little bit silly. Anyways, 6 Banelings are coming up. There's 20 Zerglings on the back of it as well. Okay, maybe 7 Banelings and then 19 Zerglings. That's more than enough to kill that one Adept. Photon Cannon coming up as well here. Void Ray was constructed, so that's something. But at this point, I think you can just run by straight into the main. Yeah. Don't even bother with the battery overcharge right there inside of the net. I love this, though. That Photon Cannon over there, anticipating this move. That Photon Cannon is probably something that KingCobra only really does against Bly. Because it's one of those things that doesn't really make a lot of sense in a normal game of ZVP. But, yeah, against Bly, I guess it's something that is a necessary evil, right? It's 150 minerals. It's not particularly cheap, but it's something you're probably better off constructing. Anyways, here we go. It's like a normal game of ZVP that's completely messed up right now. You can see that Bly also heavily oversaturating this expansion here. Yeah, he's gonna send some of the drones towards the left side of the map instead. I'm a little bit concerned, though, for what is gonna happen here as soon as these voids will go across the map, right? Because how exactly is Zerg gonna be able to connect any of these bases? Lair's coming up right now. Now, I did watch a couple of the Bly games prior to this particular one, and I noticed that he's very fond of going for a Spire, even into like a double Stargate opener. Well, we've got ourselves the Fleet Beacon coming up. +1 Flyer attacks is now researching as well after the Warp Gate research. I'm pretty sure that KingCobra wants to go straight towards that late game army that I personally struggle against quite a bit, so maybe I can learn something about this match here in the end. Oh, I actually like this a lot. Using the pylons over here inside of the net of the Zerg to warp in an Adept. You can warp in a couple of them. I think 2 of them going into the main base. Right-click on a couple of these units. Not a terrible idea. Alright, so. Lair's just about to finish up, though. I wouldn't be surprised if it's still going to be a Spire. 3rd Nexus coming up as well. Zerg did build a lot of Lings, by the way, so I guess he's just making these to try and continuously force cancels here at the 3rd of the Protoss, which, yeah, so far is actually working out better than I anticipated. It's also now forcing a lot of these Protoss units to stay at home, I suppose, because apparently that's the way you need to defend against those Lings. One of the Adepts there does get surrounded, but obviously those are the Adepts that are warped in over at... Oh my god, this is actually dealing a lot of damage. With good targeting, I think he can get at least... he could have gotten, I think, 2 more. Anyways, he does get a couple of workers right there in this game as well. Obviously, this is something that Zerg can eventually kill, but I mean... Do you really want to sacrifice 20 Lings at this stage in the game to, like, kill the 2 Photon Cannons over here? Especially an Adept right here between those 2 mineral fields. It's going to be extremely difficult to get the wraparound on that. There's the Spire, though, coming up. There's the Fleet Beacon upgrade as well for that Void Ray speed improvement, which is pretty sweet. Alright, I think eventually all of this will be broken, but I really like that position. I think you cancel. Alright, he wants to go to the 3rd base instead to kill a worker. He gets it, but not entirely sure if that really was worthwhile. Eventually, I think all of this will be cleaned up. But obviously, this is not quite your conventional start to a Zerg versus Protoss. So actually, prior to looking at a bunch of the Bly games, I also had a look at a few of the Serral replays. And... I mean, I don't want to, like, sound as a Serral, or I don't want to sound like a Serral fanboy in a game where he's not even in it, but let's just say that Serral is an absolute god when it comes to controlling that late-game army. Like, it's just, I don't know. The guy's so good. It's actually insane how hard it can be to control those armies, and Serral just does it as if he genuinely has, like, 4 hands. Anyways, what Serral does in his games is just literally never attack. So, notice the stark opposite of what Bly is doing in this match. There's 11 Mutalisks coming up right now. Mama Ship also on the production tab. Anyways, for real, like, Serral does not really attack. He does have a couple of Lings and maybe a few roaches roaming the map as well, but in general, he's very content just simply building like 100 workers and then starting up like the 50 to 100 or so Spore Crawlers. I've tried both approaches. I've tried Bly's approach and I've tried Serral's approach, and neither of them have worked out particularly well for me. But this is something I'm very unfamiliar with, though. So most Zerg players play Corruptor heavy, right, against this sort of army. But apparently what Bly decides to do is go into melee upgrades for Zerglings, while simultaneously also going for flyer attacks, but obviously he's got Mutas, right? So Voids are currently inside of the main base. Their prismatic alignment is pretty sweet. Good control here by KingCobra as well. Looks like he is he gonna be able to get the kill right there? I think he should, right? Yeah. Oh my god, no he doesn't. Wow. He needs to recall. Oh my god. Actually, Mutas get here at the perfect time, and he snipes a couple of those low HP Voids that didn't even get the kill right there on the lair. Bly already started morphing his secondary macro hatcher right over here in the main base into a lair as well, just in case the one over here would have fallen, but this is definitely a way to come back into a match like this. So Mutas in general, fantastic harassment tool. They're very good at like killing workers and getting damage out on the board, but they're very bad at just straight up fighting, unless of course the units already don't really have a lot of health. One of the problems with Mutas, right, is that Protoss can, when they open up with the double Stargate transition, right, they can just make a couple of Phoenixes, and then, you know, the game is pretty good, right? That's that's where the game in general gets pretty straightforward for Protoss, but I guess that's the moment where Bly transitions as well towards Corruptors. So he makes one pack of Mutas here early on. Nice scout here as well by Cobra. That's where he makes one pack of Mutas early on, and then he transitions towards the Corruptors as a follow-up. So this is going to be a Sky Toss versus Sky Zerg based force. And I'm assuming the +1 melee upgrade is mostly for like Zergling and Baneling run-bys. That's also why we see the macro hatchery over here and a lot of queens. Just to, yeah, get a lot of larvae out and make sure that there is quite a bit of damage out on the board as well. Try and, like, I guess, soft contain the Protoss on the bases that they've got. Alright. It's such a different approach than what we see other Zerg players do, though. I mean, I'm sure that Serral tried out this sort of playstyle as well. But he must just not have had a lot of success with it, or overall he thinks the way that he plays is a little bit better. I mean, you know, obviously that's what he thinks, but that's, I guess, what everyone thinks. Okay, here we go. This is such a strange unit comp. He tried to go for the Corruptor Puke right over there on that Nexus. Looks like there was a bit of a fight on the left side of the map too, with 5 probes going down. Anyways, I guess there was a little bit of a Corruptor Puke right there on the Nexus to try and at the very least force that Protoss army to move over to the left. Or to the right side. I mean, it depends on where you need it, right? It's very hard to actually properly split up the Skytos force. I do really like the quick Mama Ship here, though, because obviously the Mama Ship itself can defend against Ling Bane run-bys pretty effectively just by cloaking literally everything, right? You're not really gonna see a lot of detection with these Zergling armies. Then again, if you just leave the Mothership by itself, then the Corruptors can just come in and kill it. So it is a very delicate dance. There's 5 gateways coming up, though. We have some melee upgrades coming up as well, or like ground weapon upgrades. I quite like it. Hive is done at this point for Bly, who decided to go for a second Spire. There's the Ultra Cavern as well. So personally, one of the ways that I find myself losing is because I fat finger my hotkeys, right? So like, if you played away, actually hold that thought for a little bit. Looks like we do have a massive Zerg force right now, trying to get some damage done over there. Very, very late prismatic alignment on those Void Rays, and at this point I wonder if there's not actually just a little bit too much Zerg to overwhelm this Protoss Sky army. Yeah. I don't know exactly what KingCobra's MMR is. He's a name that I was familiar with back in like the early days of StarCraft 2 and Wings of Liberty, and then I quite literally haven't heard of him in like a decade, so I'm not exactly sure how good he is, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bly is quite a little bit higher up on the ladder overall. Anyways, what I was trying to get at is that when you see like Zerg players like Serral, like Raynor, play those late game armies, they play Queen, Infestor, Viper, right? So they like play all 3 spellcasters while also having their regular good old, you know, armies out on the map too. So like the Corruptors, they can't really fly into a storm, they can't really fly over like Archons either. So you gotta control like at least 4 or 5 hotkeys. Well, at least 4, I guess. Different control group hotkeys in order to control that late game Zerg army. And I usually can do so fine for a little bit, and then inevitably I make one mistake. I fly my Vipers forward, or I fat finger my Infestor hotkey, and things just go absolutely horrible. Anyways, great Zealot run by over here. 18 drones end up being killed. Very nicely done. So despite the fact that Bly did now just win the air battle, he lost a whole lot of units right there on the ground. Those Corruptors, very nice when it comes to killing air units, but not so good when it comes to killing those ground units. So really like what Cobra is doing here, sending those units around the map, just trying to deal as much damage as possible. He spotted, I guess, the Ultra transition too, so he's adding on Archons and then also Immortals. Corruptors once again are ready to come back in for more, but there were a couple more Void Rays produced. Oh, I actually really like this move! Going in for the wraparound, I guess, with a couple of Archons. Zealots, in the meantime, on the other side of the map, derping around because the drones are actually on hold position, surrounding the Queen over here, buying a lot of time for those Ultras to eventually make it over here when the Queen even lives. Alright, with good micro, obviously, you can still deal a lot of damage there, but, not perfect control there by KingCobra, so he ends up not killing the Queen and not really killing that many drones there in the grand scheme of things either. Normally at this point, Zerg doesn't really have a lot of Ling Bane upgrades, but Zerglings at this point certainly do pack a punch. Adrenal Glance is done, +3 melee is coming up as well. KingCobra, though, going for his 5th base. But I guess because of those Ultras, he's kind of he's kind of forced to go into the Immortal Army. Because otherwise the Ultras just kind of destroy everything. So because of the Ling Bane force, he is sort of making a bit of a ground army at the very least. A few Vipers right now in the mix as well, or 3 Vipers here in total for Bly. Parasitic Bomb, of course, still an extremely powerful skill. Abduction still very good as well. Got a feeling, though, that the 3rd time this may very well be the charm, as the Nexus here on the low ground does get picked off. This is also because apparently the Queens and the Ultras have made their way over towards the base here on the high ground. I mean, obviously the Queens can keep these Ultras alive for a very long time, but it is a little bit dangerous. Zealots once again on the right side of the map. Oh my god. Look at the average actions per minute. Don't say it! Don't say it! Anyways, Dark Shrine is coming up. And we're now going up to 5 Immortals. 5 Immortals are gonna make very quick work of Ultralisks. But obviously the Queens, with good control, can keep those, those units alive and running for quite some time as well. Couple of Changelings here, killed by the water balloons. Not a unit we usually see killing anything, okay. Ooh, good feedbacks. Good Storm as well by Cobra, nicely done. Although he did clip a couple of his own probes right there in the tail as well. Either way, if these Ultras, I mean, they do need detection. If those Ultras can get on top of the High Templar, they can make very quick work of them. But the Archons and the Immortals in the front getting a ton of work done. 17 probes, though, did end up going down here, but I also did see quite a few of the Ultras getting picked off here. At this point, with this many with this many Immortals, those Ultras just get absolutely decimated. Whew. Alright. Next transition here from Cobra. We've got ourselves a bunch of Tempest coming up. This is gonna be a very well upgraded Zerg army though, right? So, usually the counter to these Protoss ground armies, especially when they're very Immortal Archon heavy, is like 8 or so Brute Lords. Like, Brute Lords can change the tide of battle very quickly. I wouldn't mind seeing one of those Spires morph into a Greater Spire, but I guess that Bly is prioritizing getting those upgrades done for his air units. It makes them very scary, but obviously I'm a little concerned here for that ground army of the Protoss player. Zealots going in for more, but I think I just saw like a dozen or so Spine Crawlers. Okay, maybe not a dozen. 4 Spine Crawlers over here coming up on the right side of the map, so these Zealots probably won't be able to achieve too much unless they arrive early enough to maybe kill one of them before they're done morphing. At the same time, though, Protoss is moving a little bit into the creep, trying to clear at least some of that. Okay, one of the Spines there was killed. You know what? Oh, wow. The Ultra popped right at the perfect moment, getting maximum splash damage right from the get-go. I thought those units were still gonna have a grand old time. Okay, a couple of the units there way overextended. Complete misposition right there by KingCobra, and he does end up losing a couple of those Tempests for free. Follow-up right now from Bly as well is the Pathogen Glance upgrade, so he's gonna be going into the Infestor transition. So going Lingbane, Ultra, Queen, Infestor, Corruptors, and Spore Crawlers, and then everything. Very complex unit comp. Alright, well, I guess a couple of DTs would be good as well. Oh god, alright. There's not that many probes over here, but we did see a lot of workers getting killed here on both sides throughout this match so far. Probes at the very least for the most part do stay alive. Zealot run by towards the left side of the map. I mean, sure, the right side has been inaccessible for a bit already, but it's not like the left side is much easier to harass here at all. Neuroparasite coming up as well for Bly, so he's going to be able to mind control those big Protoss heavy hitters. If he manages to get underneath them, obviously that's one of the advantages of going for the Tempests. Tempests are, yeah, usually way behind the back of the Protoss army, right? Since they can shoot so far away, especially with air-to-air battles. It definitely is something to keep in mind here. But it looks like we have slowed down in this game a little bit. 3-3 finishing up for the Zerg. So he's going to be at maximum firepower with the Corruptors. +3 air weapon upgrades is already done for Protoss. He's going into the +2 flyer armors right there as well, which is quite nice. Yeah, other than that, I don't think a whole lot of upgrades are missing. Wouldn't mind maybe seeing, yeah, a shield upgrade or two, but that's exactly what KingCobra is doing right now. Alright. So where do we go from here? Usually, whenever I get in this sort of scenario myself, I usually transition to fat fingering my hotkeys and then losing. That's most of the time what ends up taking place in my games. KingCobra, though, at this point maxed out with a very scary army. At this point, he can smash that Protoss piggy bank on whatever upgrade he likes. So he's going into that... apparently we do have a couple of probes going down. He doesn't really care about those too much, I don't think. Doesn't really need more workers. At this point, he is making the blink upgrade as well for the Dark Templar, which is pretty sweet. Creep has been spread all the way towards the Natural Expo. Now, here we go. Ooh, okay. Corruptors are trying to get a good abduction there, and they do get the Mama ship. A couple of Archons, though, do get a nice hit as well. High Templar coming in from the side. Not quite getting the storm that they were hoping for. Almost killing their own observer there. Okay, this is very dangerous, though. Archons deal splash damage in a very small radius, and they don't really have a whole lot of range, but if the Corruptors fly over those Archons, they will get very, very, very quickly destroyed. Or they will get destroyed very quickly. There you go. Another Mama ship is coming up. Zealots here, moving towards the left side of the map. KingCobra did right now take the base all the way on the left side, so... A little surprised to not see this base over here yet, or the one on the low ground, but I guess those are, at this stage in the game, quite difficult to acquire. You're gonna need to put down a lot of photon cannons there in order to keep those alive for a little while. Looks like 19 more probes. I must have missed our little roll-by right over there. Let me just back off for a little bit, yeah. 19 more probes end up going down, and that is a big one. So Bly has now killed 61 workers in total. Zealot run-bys have been effective, but over the last couple of minutes, we've really just seen them getting picked up with ease. There's one Ultra over here still hanging out on the right side of the map as well. It's been in charge of defending against those Zealots for a while, and, well, now finally it gets to move away. This is a strange Protoss army, though. So it's Immortal Archon with a bunch of High Templar and a bunch of Tempest as well. It's really easy to look at this army and think it's a Skytos force, but it's really not. Yeah, I think this is smart. I think this is a good idea. I think actually... Oh, God. Except for the Archon, apparently. I think that staying around there was way too dangerous, and I don't think they should have been in that position in the first place. Because Zerg would have definitely jumped on top of it and destroyed all of it. You do need some sort of, like, filler, right? Like, you need something with the army as well, usually in front of it. Maybe a couple of carriers wouldn't hurt at this point either. KingCobra sitting at 169 supply. It's not as much as you would like there to be. Zealots over here. Oh my god, charge into... Oh, that's so bad. You really don't want that. I mean, obviously, it's still gas units in the form of Banelings going up against mineral-based units. So maybe it's okay for Protoss, but that was definitely not microed perfectly. He's adding on new probes again right now because he doesn't really have that many workers anymore. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, with 6 Nexi, though, you can... Careful with the mothership. You can easily resupply those mineral lines. Okay, abduction over there. Another abduction over there. Yeah, Zerg versus Protoss late game is really funny in the current state of StarCraft 2. Like, the top 10 players in the world... Like, okay, if we go to, like, the top 20 players or so overall, Zerg will win the majority of the games in the late game. Right? So, if we're talking about the Darks, the Serals, the Raynors, the Rogues of this world, right? The top 4 Zergs, they make late game Zerg look really, really broken and way too powerful. But pretty much everyone below that sucks. Like, everyone sucks against Skytles. I mean... Okay, there's obviously a few exceptions. I know that Lambo is, for example, very good as well against late-game Protoss. And there's, like, a bunch of players that are good against it. But overall, like, it used to be that, like, StarCraft 2 was balanced around Grandmaster League or so. But these days, it seems to be balanced primarily around, like, the top 10 in the world. Which, I guess, is the highest priority. But it is very difficult. So, like, I'm not saying it's a balanced problem. It's just, you know, it's just very tricky. As a viewer, I really enjoy watching these games, and as a caster, I really enjoy casting them as well. But as a player, my god, I am not a fan of being in this situation here. Anyways, luckily I'm not playing this one. Zerglings, once again, going in for more damage. And now at this point, it's too much. Like, at this point, we have seen too many workers going down, right? Look at that. 110 probes were killed here in total. KingCobra, though, decided to not... Ooh, he decided to not actually add on that many more workers here. Okay, he warped in additional units instead. He now has 154 army supply. This is one hell of an army. Banelings right here rolling into the Archons, which is not what they're great at all. Immortals right here in the back, just absolutely tearing through all of those units. Okay, we did see the Mama ship getting picked off. Tempest here from a distance as well. Still shooting away at those retreating Corruptors. I think that Protoss is not winning the air battle. But the ground battle certainly, yeah, was very nice there. The problem is, though, there's a lot of Zerglings right now. As a follow-up, Bly did spend his piggy bank. So at this point, he has no more minerals available for him. I think that Cobra might want to back off for a little bit and add in some, like, additional defenses. Because he knows that Zerg is gonna remax right here with other units, right? So, you gotta be so cautious. Okay, he decides to go for a couple of Zealots. I wouldn't mind seeing him wait for those Zealots to join this main army as well. Because I would be a little bit concerned for all of these units just getting surrounded and absolutely destroyed. I think Brute Lords would also still be a pretty good addition here. But obviously, Brute Lords are very slow and a little bit awkward. Okay, Zealots right here moving forward, getting a lot of Zerglings killed as well. Luckily here for Bly, he does keep the Banelings alive. Bly's got 6,000 gas in the bank. What can you make? Well, maybe Mass Infester and go for a lot of Neural Parasites or something along those lines. I wouldn't mind seeing it. I think it's a pretty good idea. Because I think a mineral-based army is going to have a very hard time dealing with any of these. A lot of Zealots moving over to the right side. Can't believe Cobra is actually splitting up his army. This is so dangerous, but it can obviously work out wonderfully. If you find a base that Zerg is mining from, and you can kill all of the static defense there, it is going to be super strong. Yep, and this is something that is going to be hard for the Zerg player to defend. It's just so dangerous to leave that Protoss ground army not reinforced. Anyways, that's going to be a lot of additional Zerg drones. Action per minute wise, Cobra did speed up a little bit, so that's something. It's pretty good. Zealots going in as well on the left side right now. He's dumping most of his minerals, though. I mean, it's not like those Zealots are free either, right? Like, they're 100 minerals each. And at this point, I mean, they're getting pretty good traits, but there's not really anything as a follow-up. An additional 14 probes are killed. Another Mama ship. The mothership just about to pop out of the old main Nexus. New Nexus, though, being made on the other side of the map, but that one's not gonna happen. Both players just posturing and pretending that they have a huge army, but they really don't have much money in the bank anymore at all. Okay, there's finally some Infestors coming up. I think Infestors are a very good idea here. You can't Neural Parasite the mothership, but you can Neural Parasite every other one of these Protoss units. And at this point, I guess Bly has so much gas in the bank that he can quite literally make an Infestor for every single one of these Protoss heavy hitters. Burrow's coming up too, which is kind of necessary. No Council on that Nexus. You need another 5 APM for that. No console in that Nexus, though, so that is, yeah, an additional 400 minerals down the drain. KingCobra at this point at 200 minerals, Bly at 300, well, 400 or so. Couple of DTs. I like it. Are you gonna fungal them? Like, what's the plan? Alright, yeah. Fungal with Zerglings is a follow-up, fair enough. Got a feeling, though, that the hatchery will inevitably fall here. Gonna be very difficult to keep that one alive. Alright, so we do have 6 infestors here. Burrow is gonna be available very soon, too. So Burrow will allow them to use that neuroparasite ability while underground. Okay. Caustic Spray right there once again, but good movement there by KingCobra, keeping it alive. Another couple of Zerglings in the top left, getting some work done. Okay, ooh, one Viper taking a lot of damage. Alright. I think we are gonna see one big clash between these armies. It'll all come down, I think, to the neuroparasites, or at the very least the spellcaster control. If KingCobra can feedback those infestors in time, that would be amazing. Now, there's a couple of very, very nice neuroparasites taking control of a big chunk of this Protoss army. This is also the moment when those Corruptors swoop in and jump on top of everything that's left over. And despite the fact that I actually thought KingCobra was winning this game, Bly manages to snatch the victory just barely before he gets overwhelmed. Very well played. That was a very cool game of Zerg versus Protoss. I wonder, though, what would have happened if we didn't literally see like 150 probes going down this game.